All right, here's another thing we're watching. Nvidia jumping today, set to finish at an all-time high as it closes in on reclaiming the #1 spot atop the market cap mountain. This coming as the chipmaker seems to have cornered the market with Blackwell demand soaring and rival AMD's latest chip disappointing investors. So how should you be positioned among these big chip names? For more, I want to welcome in Dr. Stacy Rasgon, Bernstein Managing Director and Senior Analyst. Stacy, always great to see you. So let's talk Nvidia here. This stock, Stacy, is up about 14% already this month. I'm sure it helps CEO Jensen Huang when he's out there, Stacy, saying, you know what, demand for my Blackwell chip, it's insane. That's his word.
Yeah, he's not holding back, is he, right?
He is not. But what do you make of this move, Stacy?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I just said he never does.
No, he doesn't. Sorry, what was your question?
Walk us through the move, Stacy. Is it justified in your opinion?
Yeah, look, so, the stock, if you go back a couple of months ago when they reported earnings, the stock sold off a bit after that print. And it actually wasn't really because of the demand. It was because of the gross margins. They had suggested margins come down a little bit into the end of the year, primarily on mix, by the way. And it's because a lot of these new products are starting to ramp and they're very complex and they're not cost optimized yet. And as people have, kind of done more of their checks as you go through the quarter, and we met with them and everything else, it's very clear for a few things. One is that, the margins, they're not coming down a lot. They're still well into the 70s, like they're fine. And the demand, like with every day that goes along, it just looks like it's getting better and better and better. And you're right, Jensen was out, I think, on CNBC or wherever, talking about it was insane. And, they're looking for material amounts of new products to ramp as we go from Q3 to Q4 as that product hits the market. But even the older generation stuff, the older Hopper chips, our demand is still off the charts, so that's still growing. And then you couple that, AMD had their event last week. And again, I always say this, I don't want to knock AMD, like they're doing very well for where they were coming from. Like this business for them might do $5 billion this year. It was zero a year ago, so that's fine. But if you look at kind of the roadmap that's going forward, and you look at some of the specs they put in for their new products, it's called the MI325 is the new one. It barely stacks up against the Hopper chips that Nvidia has been shipping for a year and a half, 2 years, and the new Nvidia chips, the Blackwell chips, the new stuff. I mean, it's night and day in terms of the capabilities of that. So the gap in terms of timing between what Nvidia is delivering, what AMD is delivering, is still very, very wide. I think it's still Nvidia's game to lose, and then I think finally, it even gets with some of the comments you just made about Alphabet and nuclear reactors, and people are foreseeing demand continuing, and they're actually making investments to enable that. And with all these stocks, like there's a big worry that just the numbers have gotten so big so quickly, they're just worried about sustainability. But clearly everything we're seeing from the supply chain and the customers, it doesn't suggest that there's any sort of faltering of demand anytime soon. Quite the opposite. So I mean, that's what's been taking it up.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting and important point that you make, Stacy, because I think part of the sort of pullback in Nvidia stock, perhaps in addition to there being questions about supply and demand, et cetera, was this idea that all of the demand is being soaked up by the hyperscalers. They're that sort of middleman, if you will. But it seemed like there were questions about where it goes from there, what their customers are doing, how their customers are using it. And it doesn't seem like that question has necessarily gone away, but maybe it doesn't matter if hyperscalers are just buying everything they can.
So it's not all hyperscalers. I think NVIDIA themselves, I can't remember the number, 45% maybe of their revenue right now was what they called, large cloud vendors and consumer internet companies. So kind of those guys. So it's not all going to them, but a lot of it is. And clearly they're the ones with the deepest pockets and they can place the biggest orders, and it can be lumpy. For now, at least, they can continue to spend. They're kind of in almost like an existential arms race, right? I think Google's CEO did put this. He kind of suggested that the risks of underinvestment were much bigger than the risks of overinvestment. And so as of right now, they can continue to spend. Now, certainly over time, there needs to be a return. And clearly, if it turns out there's no return on all this stuff, then the whole thing comes crumbling down for NVIDIA and frankly, probably for everybody, both in and out of semis, right? However, though, I don't think that is really in question. I think that there is a return, and return can come two different ways. It can be driving revenues and new business models that drive revenues. It can also be driving productivity. At least in the near to medium term, the large hyperscalers can spend even if the return is not there. I mean, they've got, they generate hundreds of billions of dollars of operating profit every year. Like they can afford to spend if they think it's existential. Over time, clearly you do need their customers, enterprise customers to adopt, but we're already seeing like data points, like you've had companies come out and talk about productivity savings. We've got other ones. I mean, it's still early days, right? We're still in the experimentation phase. But I think the general signs that people are actually like building with this and working with, I think are still there. So I think it's early. And I think if we're asking ourselves, this question 3 years from now, like what is return? I think we have a problem, but I don't think we're anywhere near that. And for now, I think the demand is still off the charts. They're going to keep selling everything they can make, at least for now.